Hello and welcome to Sunrise Cardcast, your one-stop podcast shop for all things hockey cards. My name is Eric Andrews, also known in the hobby as Hammerhawks, and I'm joined by my co-host and fellow hobbyist Aaron Goldstein, better known as Crease Collector. So to start off the episode, I just wanted to share a couple of cards of note that I have recently received, as they're pretty big cards for my collection in different ways. So the first one, if you guys watched episode 29 when we had Ryan Dempster on, you've actually already seen this card. And we did post it up on our social media as well. But just to make note of it again, when I saw the card when Ryan pulled it, I just thought it was such a cool card. And once we stopped recording after the show, Ryan and I talked trade a little bit and said, oh, would you consider trading this? If so, what kind of stuff are you interested in? Stuff like that. And we talked a little bit back and forth for the next few days and were able to work out a deal. And, again, like I said, we have already showed it on our social media, but for those who haven't seen it, it's from Ryan's 2020-21 Leaf in the Game Used Hockey Break. It's a jumbo sock numbered 4 of 5 of Connor McDavid. Socks are just not something that you see in cards all that often. So, just having kind of a unique piece of a huge name, obviously, like McDavid is super cool. It's a really nice 3-color piece, and just, being able to trade with, a guy like Ryan was super fun. And I had a card from my case break of In the Game Used that Ryan was really interested in. So it actually just worked out really nicely to do a straight across 1-for-1 trade. And we were both really happy with what we got. You guys are seeing it on the screen right now, but Ryan is actually kind enough to throw in a couple of signed cards as well. And of course, being a Cubs fan, I'll be keeping the Cubs one, and then I'll at some point send the Florida Marlins one to Aaron for his collection. And Aaron, I know that you're excited to get that card. Just a nice little memento from that episode.
Yeah, like it'll be my first ever baseball card. Like not my first ever baseball card, but the first one I'm actually going to keep and not send off in the mail. So yeah, that was an awesome gesture on his part. When you showed me those cards, I was kind of blown away. It was the first time I've ever really stopped to really look at baseball cards like that. But to know that one of those is coming into my one and only baseball card collection is going to be awesome. And yeah, obviously to have that connection, with having him as our guest on last podcast and getting a signed card is really cool. And that sock piece is awesome. And I really wish that other companies did this. But hey, it's a great piece. I'm glad that Leaf took advantage of that McDavid sock piece there. And yeah, it's a great card. And I'm happy that, you were able to make a deal for it.
Yeah, for sure. And I know Upper Deck actually does have a set of McDavid socks as well. I know that they used those for the SP Game Used Supreme set. Obviously our buddy Kurt Johnson is all about those cards, and I'm pretty sure he has one of them. I could be wrong, but I think he does. I mean, he's got pretty much everything, right? So
He does. Even in like normal sets. So like it would be cool to see other types of memorabilia kind of built in, but I'm sure we'll see that like maybe in the future we'll see. But I know Upper Deck has a lot of jersey material, and with their dealings with the NHL, they obviously get a continuous supply of it. So who knows? I mean, we'll see.
yeah, one thing that I really liked about, this specific insert set, the jumbo cards from In the Game Used, is they featured a variety of materials. So obviously you had, your patch pieces, a sock. I know Cam Neely also had a sock card in the set as well. Goalie pads like the Patrick Waugh I got, and I think there were, some gloves like the Malkin that I got, and just really cool to see a variety of equipment that was used in those cards. I know there were skate cards as well. So just really neat seeing all of that, variety of memorabilia being incorporated into just one specific insert set. Not something that you see super often. So really loved the idea, and it was definitely well done and well executed for sure. And then turning to the second card that I want to share that I recently received in the mail.
I'm ready.
We'll see. At this point, there are only 3 people in the hobby that know that I have this card. And as Aaron just alluded to, he is not one of them. So he's going to be finding out at the same time as you guys do. And just for a little bit of context, I came across the owner of this card, who is Ron Sobkows on Hobby Insider, in mid-February. And when I found out that he had it, I just had to message him and, said, "Hey, would you consider moving it?" And, he said, "Yeah, I would consider moving it. I don't mind having it, but it doesn't necessarily fit my collection super well. So, if I can find a better home for it, fine." So we talked a little bit and did some negotiating, and Ron is super easy to work with for anyone that has traded with him or done a deal with him before. He's really easy to work with. So we're able to get a deal done pretty easily. And it did take a while to receive the card, though that isn't Ron's fault in any way. Just the circumstances of the situation. But the card finally arrived to me on March 8th. So I've had it for 9 days as of when we're recording this, but when it comes out, probably a week and a half or 2 weeks. And I would say at this point, it's probably the most unique card that I own and is the first of its kind in my collection. So without further ado, I'm going to show Aaron the card. And when I show him, I'll throw up an image of it on the video if you guys are watching on YouTube, which we always encourage you to do so that you can see some nice added visuals in pretty much every episode that we have. But yeah, I'll show Aaron the card and then he can tell you exactly what it is. Aaron,
I'm
are
trying
you
to I'm
ready?
trying to decide like what it would be. I'm trying to think like what does he have? What does he not have? He said it was unique. Like what could this be? I want to guess if that's allowed. I want to guess like a cut autograph, but I don't know.
I do have a cut autograph.
Okay, never
I
mind.
just pulled it out the other night. I have a
Because those are sweet.
Keith Magnuson kind
Oh,
of
right, you do
cut.
have a cut. Never mind. Okay, I'm wrong. Okay, I have no idea.
So that's I think that is the only cut I have that I can think of, unless I'm forgetting something. But I think that's the only cut I have. But anyway, no, it is not a cut autograph. Instead,
Oh, no way. Oh, no way. It is. Okay, for those who don't know, that is one of the art cards from the Vesna collection that we actually just broke a couple episodes ago. That is just awesome. Oh, man, that's sweet. And it's the one where he has the old school Montreal Canadiens jersey on. Oh, that's a classic photo, and that is a classic card now. Oh, man, that is great. What does it say on the back? Oh, that's sweet.
it
That's a nice back.
says you have received a Vesna art card from the Vesna collection by President's Choice Trading Cards. On the front of this card is an original drawing of George Vesna by Ken Jowdry. Enjoy your piece of hockey history.
Yeah, that artist is really, really talented. I think I saw some stuff on Instagram, I think. So yeah, very, very talented artist. That is awesome. One of four, but they're all one of one. So that is just, clearly amazing. Obviously very unique. Dude, that is awesome. That is
Yeah.
insane. I'm surprised you even got a chance at one of those because obviously it's from the Vesna collection, which a lot of those cards were, sealed in people's collections the minute they were pulled. But, to have not only a one of one from the product, but just to get one of those art cards, which were, sought after is, totally like not the right word to use, but just amazing. That's crazy. I'm going to ask you after what you gave up for that. Like, that is just unreal.
So for context, like you said, it was obviously, going to be a tall task to get one because to remind you guys, there was essentially a kind of a drawing to see who would get the art cards. They were originally supposed to be just freebie bonus cards in the boxes themselves, but then they were lost in the mail for a little while and didn't get to Dr. Price in time for pack out. So what he ended up having to do was just hosting a Zoom call with everyone that had ordered a box and just had some kind of like some raffle tickets that you'd get at a carnival or something and picked off 150 of them since that's how many boxes there were of the product and just picked out four at random and whoever had those box numbers got one of the cards. And luckily it kind of worked out nicely that four different people won. So you didn't have one person getting two or three or anything like that. So that was really nice. I'm sure that's kind of what Dr. Price was hoping would happen. It ended up happening that way. And the other three guys that got them are actually all guys that I talk to pretty frequently. I don't know if they're wanting people to know that they have them or not. I don't know if they've all publicly shared them. I know two of them have, but they're all guys that really wanted to keep those cards in their collection. And those three guys were all on the Zoom call when the drawing was happening. So we all knew, oh, those guys got him. But then the fourth guy, being Ron, was not on the call. And so everyone was kind of like, oh, who got the last one? We don't know. So there was kind of some mystery there. And because not everyone was on the call, obviously. I think there were, I don't know, maybe 25 or 30 people on the call. It was a pretty good turnout, but certainly not everybody by any means. So people were kind of wondering, who got the last one. And then I think a day or two later on Hobby Insider, Dr. Price had posted the winning numbers and everything. And Ron posted saying like, oh, like I won the last one. So, like I said, I just messaged him and congratulated him, obviously a super sweet card, and just kind of asked, if he was going to keep it. And like I said, he's willing to work with me on it, and we worked out a deal. And pretty much it was that I kind of just acquired the rights to the card because Ron himself never actually had the card in hand. So he had basically, sent in his box to Dr. Price, to prove that he had the winning number. And then, from there, the three of us just touched base and said, hey, we worked out a deal. So Dr. Price just send it straight to me. So Ron never actually got a chance to have the card in hand. But yeah, I mean, it's just a stunning card. And I'm sure you guys really can't tell from a scan or anything like that, but the detail on it is just unbelievable, especially if you get into the face and the eyes specifically. Just considering that those are all like individual brush strokes is just like mind-boggling. So definitely one of the coolest cards that I have, and every single day since I've gotten it, I take a long look at it and just kind of say, wow. I mean, it's just such an amazing card, and like I said, definitely nothing that I've ever owned before. And yeah, just a super super cool card that I'm very lucky to own. Especially considering that at the end of the day, only one was really up for grabs. So kind of the cherry on top for my Vesna collection PC, so to speak. So yeah, I just wanted to share those couple of pickups with you guys. And yeah, I mean, Aaron, you've obviously given a little bit of reaction to the card itself,
It's
but
stunning. Like,
when
it's
you
great.
yeah, when you saw, were you like
Well,
stunned?
I didn't know that you'd even have a chance. Like, it wasn't even on my radar for someone to get a card like that after they were, of course, given to the respective collectors through that draw. And just the fact they were even made available through that draw was even, a feat in itself, because, they were lost for quite a while. And you guys can hear the whole backstory in our interview with Dr. Price. And of course, we did the box bracelet, about the Vesa collection and all that stuff. But like just the fact that they were eventually released to the general public was a feat in itself. And the fact that you were able to make a deal for one is just another level. And it's kind of always really great when you can always have a card that you're kind of looking out for, and you kind of have that, detective mode on. You kind of figure out who has that card, and trying to make a deal for it that way. Like, whether it's through a unique redemption program like this, or whether it's like someone's group break or someone's personal box break or something like that. It's always nice when you can kind of put in that kind of work behind the scenes, and then eventually land the card. And obviously to have one of this significance is just next level. And we always kind of say that cards are kind of their own pieces of art, and then the cards like the Masterpieces collection take it to that next level, being copies of the artistic renditions of these players. And then a card like this that's actually a tiny piece of art, like original art, is just, of course, the cream of the crop as far as like cards and art and having that mix. So just artistically, it's great. Historically, it's great too. And just like in the hobby, like we'll never see a release like this again. And yeah, to have an art card of Vesna is just awesome. So I mean, hey, you can't really explain it much better than that. It's just a great card. And yeah, dude, like unreal. Yeah, after all these art cards and everything like that, just crazy mail days, we just wanted to transition to our main kind of segment in this episode. I just decided last week, we were kind of just, mulling over a couple episode topics. And I decided, like, hey, you know what? Like, let's just get the fans involved and, shoot up a couple questions and get some insight into what our listeners want to know about us and want to know about our thoughts on some things. So we decided on this Q&A episode. And we kind of split up these questions into a few different parts. We have like just some personal questions, and then we have just some that revolve around player collecting, which is obviously a segment in the hobby that we really enjoy. And then we have some box breaking stuff. And then we have one question at the end, which we think, honestly, it probably could be an episode in itself. We might even talk about it on a future episode in length, but we'll definitely get to it today. Save that to the end. But just some questions to start here. These first 3 questions here were sent by Ryan. He goes by CHL Collector on Instagram. I've had a couple of dealings with him in the past. We actually met up to make an in-person deal, safely, of course, in the summer. So he's a really good dude, and I was just really pleased to see that he sent in these questions. So starting off, and we'll just rotate these questions. What is one snack food that you can't live without? That is a tough one, and obviously not card related. For me, it's one snack food I couldn't live without. Like, I would say cookies. I'm a big chocolate chip cookie fan. Like, honestly, if there's cookies around, I'm gonna be there. So that's pretty much, it's simple. It's nothing fancy, but yeah, chocolate chip cookies are just the bomb, maybe some Oreos sprinkled on there. Just love it. So cookies would be my favorite snack food that I literally couldn't live without. So that's me.
That's a good answer. That's definitely a good answer. I mean,
What about you?
You can't go wrong with
Can't go wrong with cookies, man.
Can't go wrong with baked goods, that's for sure. I'm kind of taking it a little bit of a different route, though. That is a really good answer. Hadn't considered anything baked, but I was thinking more kind of like stuff you can just buy
At the store. Yeah, that makes sense.
So my
answer, you could buy cookies at the store.
True. You can, but I guess I was thinking more like something munchy kind of, and so my answer would be Harvest Cheddar Sun Chips.
That's very specific. I love Sun Chips. I can't tell, like, is that the original flavor, like the one that you always see, like the main flavor? Or is Harvest Cheddar like another?
No, Harvest Cheddar is definitely one of the big ones. I mean, the big 4 are probably original, which is kind of just like salt, and then Harvest Cheddar, French onion, which is the green one, and then garden salsa is the red one. So those are kind of like the main 4 that you see pretty much all the time.
Okay, yeah. I've definitely had these. Big fan of the Sun Chips. Today's episode 30, sponsored by Martin Brodeur and Sun Chips. Way to go. What an answer. Nice. That's a really good answer. All right, question number 2. This is actually a really, really good one, kind of taking things back a little bit. He said, if you could collect something completely different, what would it be? Now, when I first read this question, like, I was thinking like maybe a different player, but I'm going to kind of go like off the board. And when he says something different, like, I'm going to really, pick something different. If I could collect one thing that was totally different for what I'm collecting right now, which is primarily player collecting, I would kind of go away from that and maybe collect, this is a hard one. I don't know. Maybe like, I want to say like maybe like ticket stubs or something. I've always been like, yeah, it's not really card related, but I have a small little ticket stub collection of events that I've been in and hockey games and things like that. So, I mean, now, the ticket stub's kind of like old school now. It's kind of like, you print out your thing on Ticketmaster and that's it. But there are some older designs that really look awesome. And I know some collectors do collect it if their players on it. I have a few ticket stubs of Enroth just for fun. But yeah, like, I would kind of go all out and kind of collect different sets of tickets and kind of scrapbook them and things like that. It's always been really cool, especially the older designs, like the early 2000s. Those were always kind of unique, and some of them were really, really cool. And especially the Leafs did some for their 100th anniversary, and they were like going for crazy money before, obviously, and obviously after the game as well. Like, they were seriously collectible. And some of them were amazing. So yeah, like something like ticket stubs would be awesome. But yeah, nothing really beats cards for me. But like, that was a really good question. But I'll circle back around if I have another card related one. But if I could collect something totally different, it'd probably be tickets.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I definitely, when I read it, I took it to mean, like how you did, like a completely different topic than sports cards. And, that's something I had to give some thought to. There's probably a couple different answers that I could give, but the one that I will go with is either postcards or photographs of either
That's a good one.
places I've been or places I've lived. And one, I actually kind of well, I don't have one. My wife has one. I got her for, I think, her birthday a few years ago, a postcard that's probably about 100 years old of the dorm that she lived in when we were in college. So I was able to find one on eBay and got it for like $10 or something. And it was from the 1910s. And like you could still see like the window of the room that she lived in and everything, and pretty cool. And where we're living now is kind of like a downtown converted apartment complex, and it used to be used kind of as office buildings and stuff and various things over the years. But I know that there is a postcard showing our building from probably like the 1920s or something like that. And I know that our local library has one, but that's the only copy have ever seen. And so like
Have you
every
ever asked to
now,
buy it,
no, I mean
or is
I don't
it
think they would sell it,
probably not?
unfortunately.
Probably not. Still
But
cool.
yeah, so every now and then I'll look on eBay and just like Google postcards from my town and see if I can find one, and haven't been able to find one, but that's definitely like if I ever saw one available for sale, I would definitely buy it. So I think I would say that probably that's probably my answer.
That's a great answer. I love that. I love that one that it kind of relates to cards, but also to where you live and there's memories there and stuff. And having that historical connection is so cool. Like, that's awesome. I was actually looking up some old cards last week. And speaking of postcards and school, in Canada, we have McGill University. And I was looking up some stuff this week. And apparently, one of the first, well, actually, the first, it's debatable, I guess, but the first ever hockey team was at McGill University. Like, their school team was the first ever official, hockey team, and some of their team postcards are actually like some of the first ever hockey cards, like from the first ever team. So that's really cool, to have that connection there with postcards. I thought you were going to say old postcards, like from team issues or things like that, or some of the old cigarette issues, like of the old postcards they used to create back in the 1910s. But your suggestion definitely has a lot more significance personally. So that's great choice.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned McGill. I briefly considered going there actually, but didn't end up doing it. But yeah, definitely cool to think about, what we might collect in a different world. But on to Ryan's final question, and this is a really good one that before the show we were both like, man, what are we going to say for this? We don't know. So that question is, if you could talk to yourself as a brand new collector using a time machine, what advice would you give yourself all these years later? And I still don't know that I have a great answer for that question, but I think, the first thing that kind of comes to mind, obviously, is just making sure that you're enjoying it. Not that there's been periods of time that I haven't enjoyed what I'm collecting, but I think just making sure that's really the biggest thing, and not always worried about, what something is worth or things like that. Though with that, I think I would also say, kind of to take more risks, so to say, about acquiring some more iconic and bigger cards. Obviously, I mean, people that don't have a Gretzky rookie card nowadays wish they had one. And, that's
With
certainly
Crosby too,
yeah, Crosby Young Gun, Ovechkin Young Gun,
right?
all those. I mean, those are all cards that growing up, I always said I really want one of these. And, there were many times where I thought, oh, I'm going to try to trade for one, or I'm going to sell a bunch of stuff and buy one. And, just never happened. And now, I mean, they're just in a completely different price bracket altogether. So whether or not I'll ever get any of those cards, I mean, I'm still hopeful. I guess I would say that the Gretzky is probably my top priority out of those cards. But yeah, I guess maybe just not being hesitant to make a big deal. Yeah, I don't know. I guess those are a few things. And maybe another one that I just thought of too is really collect what you enjoy. Don't just be collecting something because it's either just readily available or because it's, a hyped up player, or, whatever it might be. Really collect something that you enjoy, because, in my early days of player collecting, I pretty much would just collect a different player every single year and then sell everything and start another collection, sell everything. And it took a few years for me to catch on with Nicholas Jalmerson and really stick with him. So I guess that would be another thing, is just really focus on collecting what you really enjoy.
I mean, like that advice is it's pretty sound advice there, Eric. Yeah, that last one about collecting what you enjoy is so important. I mean, if you collect, like, even if you have like endless pockets, it just, it's so important to collect what you like to really make it in this hobby. And I don't mean financially, I just mean just to really surviving, the constant releases and the all these hype rookies every year. If you kind of fall into I don't want to say trap of collecting, the new hottest, rookie or whatever. I mean, I think while your collection would be impressive to, I guess, the masses, like at the end of the day, you are the one with those cards, and you're the one that has to, be in possession of these cards. And like, I think if you want to stick around in this hobby, I think it's important to really just collect what you enjoy, so that at the end of the day, you're left with cards that you got to look at and that you actually enjoy. There's nothing worse than sinking some money into cards that are cool to show off to people, but at the end of the day, you don't really, like, deep down, that these cards aren't for you. I think, well, like, I love like Sidney Crosby and McDavid and all that, but if I dropped the money that, like, I'm not even saying now, of course they're sky high now, but even back in the day when they were debuting, if I did drop the money on them, I'd probably have buyer's remorse like for a long time, because I mean, just knowing that, it's not truly like something I want for Aaron's collection, it's just something that, not that you're pressured into it or anything, but you feel like you need to have this card or that card. And like, try not to have like so many rules around that. Like, just get cards that you really enjoy, and you're not going to think twice about. And obviously financially, it's important to stick within your lane and buy what you can, and not go in debt, obviously. I've heard some crazy stories about that. So spend within your means, and yeah, just enjoy it. As far as my actual advice, I don't want to piggyback off Eric's too much, but for me, I would say, try not to get jealous is probably a big one. I remember when I was younger in the hobby, and it pains to admit, but like, I definitely felt my fair share of jealousy, for sure. Like, if there was a collector, like, I collected Brodeur and Belfour cards and stuff, and primarily like when I first started. And obviously, if you collect guys like that, like Hall of Famers, there's going to be competition for their cards like crazy, and just a bunch of products that they're in and things like that, high end, low end. And so, there's going to be a lot of competition and a lot of nice cards, especially for collectors who are a lot older than you and a lot more experienced. They're going to have a lot better cards than you. And so I remember getting, like, somewhat jealous that someone would pick up this cool card that I really wanted. And at the time, it felt, it felt normal. And it's definitely part of growing up, for sure. But as I look back on that, it did feel kind of silly, as a 12, 13-year-old kid, but as I approach 30 now, it just kind of makes you feel a little silly, but also you really learn from that stuff. And now when I see people in the hobby and they collect, whether it be the same players as me, or something like a set or something like that I collect, I really honestly genuinely feel good when someone picks up a card that they needed. And maybe I needed it too, but honestly, it's just about accepting that you're not going to own every single card, and that's totally okay. And just be happy that this guy picked up this awesome card for his collection, because that feeling. Eric knows that feeling from 5 minutes ago, but we all know that feeling, picking up a card that we really wanted for our collections, and they, have that feeling right now. So it's up to you to really support that and not kind of tear anyone down. So I think for me, the big one would be, try not to feel jealous. It's kind of human nature. It's hard to do, but just try to sit back and say, hey, you know what? You have a lot of cards in your collection that other people would like, and other people probably feel jealous of too. So, it's not really that good to feel jealous all around. It's just, what? You have the cards that you have, and they have the cards they have. And if there's a deal to be made, great. But if not, you just got to kind of accept that and just focus on your own collection. And yeah, that's probably a big one for me. Some great questions so far. We're only like 3 questions in, but these are awesome questions. Speaking of player collecting, Fred Ventures on Instagram asked this next question, which also is a great question. I'm sure a lot of you guys would be interested in. What is the best place to find a list of all the cards from a certain player? That is awesome. There's a couple resources that I've used over the years. Eric can jump in as well with his thoughts on this as well. But I was actually answering a question for someone this week as well. Same thing. As far as resources go, and this is just my opinion, and obviously it depends what you collect, but there isn't anything that's going to 100% have every single card. If you want to go within the parameters of, say, licensed upper deck issues from the past 5 years or so, then yeah, you're pretty set. You're going to find pretty much every card you need. But if you're looking at, say, player collecting or collecting cards over, a fair number of sets over a couple years, you might find difficulties. Or if you're a team collector, again, there's some team issues that you might not have heard of. I picked up one for my collection that I didn't even know existed for about 8 years or so. And I just picked that one up for my Enroth collection last week. So there's always team issues that you're never really going to know about until you see them. And same goes for these databases. I mean, they're not dedicated player collectors. They're just trying to report on the hobby as a whole. So they're going to miss a few. But one of the big resources, and people might laugh at this, but when I first started trying to get my player collector going, I used Beckett. And I know their site has gone under, and pricing guide has gone under a fair amount of criticism over the years. And I get why. Going from print, to digital and trying to, navigate the whole pricing format and things like that. But as far as their checklists go, well, it's not perfect, and there's definitely been some errors in there. It's a really good tool to use to kind of get a feel for how many cards that your particular player has. Again, their stuff is primarily going to have the upper deck stuff and things like that, the standalone releases that we're used to seeing every year. Another, like probably the best resource that I found is on Sports Card Forum and their inventory manager tool. It's a bit daunting to use, especially if you're not familiar with the site and that tool, but it is probably the most accurate checklist tool that you can ever use. It's one that is constantly updated with new releases. As soon as it gets released, we have a moderating team that is constantly updating it. If you put in certain requests that we've missed, I say we because I'm also a moderator on there. I don't input that myself, but I know someone who does, and they can always go with a list to that user and say, hey, like I would like these added to the inventory, like say a set or something like that, or a team issued set. And the person would add it in there if they get reliable information and card numbers and things like that. They'll definitely add it in there. So it is by far the most accurate checklisting tool out there. Again, it's daunting to use. So if any of you guys want to use that and you have a couple questions, let me know. It really is a great tool. You can actually kind of copy and paste. And it's been a while since I've done this, but you were able to actually export text format. So if you want to post it to an Excel spreadsheet or post it online really quick, you could do just that. It's a very easy tool. And yeah, it probably has all the stuff you need right there. I've used a combination of both over the years, Beckett and Sports Card Forum Inventory Manager to get my checklists. Although he doesn't have very many cards, Enroth has been in a couple of releases that were not in Beckett. So this tool was really nice to kind of get my checklist off the ground, to know what I had and know what I still need. And like another feature of this thing, if you create a want list on there, it actually searches other people's inventories. And so if someone has a card you need, it will kind of flag that card and you can know which member has a card that you might need. So it's also a really nice intuitive tool there. So again, it's not perfect, but it has, from where I'm sitting, probably the most accurate tool that I've seen out there, for tracking those cards.
Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, I know a lot of people like Sports Card Forum and the resource that they have there. To add a little bit more, what you said about Beckett, Beckett is really good for that. The mainstream products and sets. You're pretty much always going to see stuff that's coming out being listed on Beckett. Not always. I mean, I know that there have been times where maybe it's an Easter egg card or whatever it might be, just somehow slips through the cracks and isn't listed on Beckett. So sometimes, you might find, oh, I know this card definitely exists, but it's just not on there for whatever reason. And then, kind of like what Aaron said, any of that kind of more obscure stuff is kind of hit or miss on Beckett. A lot of team issue stuff might not be on there. A lot of oddball releases might not be on there. We talked about the Vesna collection earlier tonight. The Vesna collection is not listed on Beckett, even though it was a boxed product released publicly that, is a reputable, source and all that, a very legitimate product. It just isn't on there for whatever reason. But one that, I wasn't super familiar with until maybe a few years ago, but I've actually now really started using it a lot of late, is Trading Card Database. And, I actually think, in my opinion, that it's the most complete. There is pretty much everything that you can possibly imagine is on there. All those oddball sets like the Vesna collection, team issues, anything you can think of, they pretty much have it on there. There was one day, I don't know, probably last year, I was just searching on the site, seeing if anyone happened to have a Jacob Slavin card that I didn't have, and discovered that there was actually a team set that I didn't know existed because I'd never seen it before. So I said, wait, what is this? Like, I didn't know this was the thing. So, obviously that card's now on my want list, and I did come across someone that has one, but they can't find it. So I'm hoping that they can eventually dig it out. And they said that if they ever come across it, that they will let me know. But it's definitely hard to find those team issued sets anyway, even, right after the fact. But if it's, a year or two, or, in Aaron's case, 10 years after the fact, it's almost impossible to find that stuff sometimes. So, but yeah, I would definitely say that Trading Card Database is probably the one that I would say is the most complete. Or you could maybe say 1A, 1B, whichever way, with Sports Card Forum. And for those of you that are interested, Trading Card Database is tcdb.com. And obviously, Sports Card Forum is sportscardforum.com. So, yeah, I think pretty straightforward question that we answered, in length there. Transitioning to the next question, which came from 2 Minute Card Talk on Instagram. And this is a good one too. If you are starting to collect a player, what are some of the key cards that you want to get? And, of course, this is going to come down to the player that you're collecting, because the guys that I collect, don't have some of those key cards. Like Nicholas Hjalmarsson doesn't have a Young Gun. He doesn't have a Future Watch. He doesn't have the Cup rookie card. He doesn't have an Ice Premier. He doesn't have any of that stuff. So, it kind of just depends on the player. But if you're talking about, a player that got a fair amount of attention as a rookie, and was in pretty much every product, I think most people at this point, for a current modern day player, would say that the Young Guns rookie card from Upper Deck is pretty much, the main card that you really want to have. As far as autograph rookie cards, you're looking at the SP Authentic Future Watch autos. If you want the high end, you want to get the Cup rookie patch auto if your player has it. I really do like the Ice Premiers rookie cards. I think those are really underappreciated cards. They're always fantastic in person and fairly limited depending on the player and, kind of what tier they're in. But like I said, I think the Ice rookies are just a really underappreciated rookie card, and probably undervalued compared to, some of the other main rookie cards. So I would say, in terms of rookie year stuff, those are probably the ones that I would really focus on. If I wasn't super collecting someone, if I was just collecting a player casually, those are really the ones that I would, say I really want to have those. In terms of non-rookie year stuff, I don't know if I would say that there's necessarily a go-to. I mean, I think, well, one thing that stands out, if you have, if you're collecting a player that might not get a ton of hobby attention, kind of like the scrubs that we collect, right? I look at Nicholas Hjalmarsson. He didn't have an autograph card until, this past year, and he was a rookie in 2008-09. So obviously when that first autograph card came out, I was all over it. I had to get multiple copies of it just to be like, he finally got one and I'm going to get him, and with that, same with memorabilia as well. Hjalmarsson didn't have any real memorabilia cards as a rookie. He did have the Upper Deck Black Letterman rookie cards, but those are, of course, just manufactured letters. But in terms of actual game use memorabilia, he didn't have anything until I think like 2015, 2016, somewhere around there. He was included in the SP Game Used Stadium Series sets. So that was his first Game Used memorabilia cards. So I would say, if you're collecting a lesser featured player, that, getting those first quote unquote premium cards of those guys would definitely be cards to get. And then I'll throw out one last suggestion. Hopefully I'm not taking all your answers, Aaron, but one card that I really like collecting every single year of all of my players, and I'll pick up multiple copies if I can get them for a reasonable price. And that would just be their Upper Deck High Gloss Parallel. I really enjoy just having as many of those as I can. I think for at least 1 year, I think I have maybe 4 of the 10 Slavens from 1 year, and I think 3 of the 10 from another year. And so just because they're, in my opinion, arguably the best parallel that's made each year. So just kind of having those boost up that quality component of your collection is definitely a good way to go, in my opinion.
I mean, what can you say about those answers? It's kind of like the card you got earlier in the show. I mean, that it does it all, really. Those those answers are top notch. Yeah, like I would say when looking at rookie cards, the Young Guns, the SBA Future Watches, and you can include the patch in there too, and then the cup. I think that's like part of the main crop that you would want. Or if you're kind of focusing on guys on your team, if you want to pick up those kind of trio for each of the rookies that you're focusing on, or every year you pick up a couple rookie cards of, the new rookie on the Blackhawks or something like that. I think, or the Maple Leafs. I think, those three are great cards to pick up. One, because they're awesome. Two, because I think it really gives you, that true rookie card feel with the Young Gun, but also, a nice clean autograph card. SBA, it's classic. And then you have, of course, the patch cards, the RPAs, the cup. It's just awesome. So any of those three could be awesome, or all three could be great. I think those are great suggestions, especially when looking to collect a certain player. I agree with that, and I would definitely say that as my answer, but I'm just going to throw it a little bit of a curveball. All these baseball references. If I were going to start super collecting a player, and there is a difference, I would really focus on their pre-NHL stuff. If you're collecting a player like, in 2021, maybe there might be not that much available. But if going back a couple of years ago, when In the Game was still around and things like that, really pumping out that heroes and prospects and things like that, before they even step foot on an NHL surface, those cards to me was really important to get. Or of course those European cards that for some are seemingly impossible to find, or they go up in value if the player is really good. So I would really focus on their minor league stuff or their European stuff. If you made the decision to start collecting a player very, very soon after they started playing professional hockey, even overseas or something, or if they're here in North America and they seem like the real deal, I would say really focusing on those cards would be beneficial to your collection, because those cards are amazing. But also just realistically, a lot of those cards are going to be very hard to find or get scooped up by other collectors if he is the real deal. So I would go kind of that way. And then, of course, once he does make his debut, obviously the Young Guns, SBA, and the Cup cards are going to be number one on your list as well. But yeah, great responses here.
I would add one more that is thought of,
Yeah.
kind of an oddball in terms of rookie cards. And, again, not every player is going to have them. And I would say that this even does apply to kind of the old school version of the cards and the new school version of the cards as well. That being the SP Game Used rookie cards. I just think are super underappreciated cards. They always have been, in
They
my
are.
opinion, even going back, when they first came out in the early 2000s, and, even going up to, Crosby and Ovechkin's rookie year. And, even I know for Nicholas Hjalmarsson and Mike Mole, the 0809 design was just stunning. Super cool cards, and then now obviously kind of the modern iteration of the SP Game Used rookie cards is they're numbered out of the player's jersey number. So not only is that just kind of a cool little added feature, but it makes them harder to find. For me, Nicholas Hjalmarsson fell in the old school category, so his SP Game Used rookie card is numbered out of 999. whereas Jacob Slavin and Ryan Dzingel were both in 2015-16. So Slavin is numbered out of 74 and Dzingel is numbered out of 43. And Slavin wasn't too hard to find because that's a fairly high print run for those cards, but Dzingel was definitely a lot tougher to find, and it took me quite a few years to get one. So, just for whatever reason, they just didn't show up, even though there were 43 of them out there. Brogan Rafferty, I still haven't even seen a copy of his SP Game Used rookie card because there's only 3 of them. So that's like definitely my top want for Brogan Rafferty, who, isn't someone that I talk a whole lot about, but is a guy that I do collect since I do know him personally as well. Hasn't played too much in the NHL yet, but does have some cards. So anyway, yeah, I would say that those SP Game Used rookie cards, both in the old school sense of, kind of just being easier to find but underappreciated, and then the modern day iteration of them being in some cases extremely hard to find, are cards that I just think in terms of a player's rookie year are very underappreciated for what they are.
I would 100% agree, and it's very cool. I think I mentioned this. I think I mentioned it in our player collecting episode, but it's cool that, especially for a collector like yourself, in his collecting career, shall we call it, you've collected players for a number of years, but also I guess through a different era, in each player, his with Johnson, for example, his SB Game Used rookie cards are totally in a different type of product than they are today. When looking at your recent player collections, and the card has taken on kind of like a new life, so you can kind of look at the old school rookie cards of the past, and now what comes out now. And I guess we're calling pre 2010 like an era now, I guess, because it kind of feels like an era, that 2009 10 timeline as far as cards go. It was kind of like an era, and what products look like now, especially. So actually, like, I posted on our Instagram story the old Black Diamond rookie gems. Those cards were, I kind of pulled it there, and a couple of people were saying that they prefer the old rookie gem design better as opposed to the newer ones, the newer high end versions. So that is like in a similar boat with the cards that you just mentioned. You have the rookie gems of today with the diamonds embedded, and they're very cool, obviously. But obviously, the older ones do have that nostalgic kind of feel to it. And that is part of the reason why I'm getting so old, because I can kind of identify with those old rookie gem cards and really enjoy them. Like, whereas a new collector today probably wouldn't think they're all that nice. But hey, like we were saying before, collect what you like. But like, I agree with all that. The new school cards versus the old school ones. So it's definitely cool that you're able to appreciate both and have them represented fully in your collection. And best of luck with that out of 3 card for sure. Now on to box breaking. I know it's very not controversial now, but obviously the prices on boxes have been skyrocketing the past little bit. And Ryan Darcy, a lot of Ryan's asking questions today on Twitter, said, is there a return value in the fat pack boxes of UD1 and 2? I would say, simply put, yes. Any retail, probably for any year, I'd say, as long as the price is pretty decent, any year, Upper Deck Series 1 or 2, I think there definitely is value there. It depends how much you're buying and what you hit, obviously. But if you hit the main rookie, I mean, you're pretty much coming out of there laughing. Of course, if we're talking a McDavid year, it's just ridiculous. But even new product, whether it be, the number 1 Young Gun in there, or even a couple of the other top picks there, you're definitely not wrong to buy any retail. I know a lot of people who actually just buy retail every year looking for that Young Gun and don't even bother with hobby. And they, obviously, depending on what they pull, can turn out like bandits there. So yeah, I definitely think any iteration of any Upper Deck 1 or 2 product in retail would, I think you'd be okay. As long as you kind of stop yourself and not spend too much. I think you'd be okay and can definitely get that return value. We even opened some small blasters of UD1 trying to hunt for Lafreniere, and although I didn't hit one, I probably broke even, or even I think I made a couple bucks after my 10 pack break or whatever it was. So yeah, retail, even if you don't hit the big hit, I think retail can be not a big money maker, but I definitely think there is some return value to be had, as long as you don't get too crazy with it.
I would actually kind of go the opposite with my answer.
Whoa. Okay.
I know we usually agree on most things.
Do
I
it.
would
Do it.
say I would say the potential for return value is certainly there, especially how you were saying the big name young guns. If you
Right.
buy a
Right.
fat pack for $5, pull the big name young
Of
gun,
course.
yeah, you're laughing all the way to the bank, absolutely. And that's very possible. I've seen posts on Facebook, last year someone was like, oh, bought a fat pack, got a Kale McCarr young gun,
Or
boom.
even the older ones, like
Um,
guys pulling, Matthews, Marner, McDavid. Like it still happens today. But yeah.
Yeah. But in terms of consistency with the return value, I would say fat packs are not a good option. Generally speaking, I have opened Upper Deck 1 and 2 fat packs here and there. I really don't open it all that often. I mean, I think I've probably opened like a few of them in my entire collecting career just because the value in my opinion isn't super good because let's say you get 32 cards in a fat pack for Upper Deck 1 or 2, I would think that at least 31 of those are going to be base cards. And then the 32nd card, not that it's literally the last card in the pack, it's in the middle, of course, but is probably going to be an Upper Deck portraits or if it's Series 2, maybe it's an OPG update or whatever it might be. And of course, obviously, you still can get those young guns, and I think they still are 1 in 4 packs. But just based on kind of the value that you're getting out of that money, I would rather kind of take my shot buying a blaster or a retail box as a whole rather than just buying a few fat packs, because the odds of you getting more quality is better in other configurations than it is a fat pack. A fat pack is the perfect thing if you're trying to finish out your base set, or if you're collecting base cards of your favorite team or whatever. That's the perfect configuration to go for because that's really what you're getting. You might get one or maybe two inserts in the fat pack, whereas even in retail, if you get a 24 pack box, I think you're still getting an insert pretty much in every pack. Blasters not necessarily, but just in terms of the value there, I think that the fat packs are probably the worst for the value out of the different configurations with Series 1 and 2. Again, not that I would say like absolutely don't do it, but because they're definitely fun. I mean, they're huge packs. I mean, that's just kind of fun to open something like that. But if you're opening those purely looking at the value, I would say it's probably not a great bet, even though the potential to do really well is there. But that potential is there in any other configuration as well too. So I would just say in terms of the consistency of the value, it's probably the worst configuration out of all of them for Series 1 and 2. But that's just my opinion on that. Obviously, like I said, nothing wrong with buying them or not buying them or whatever it might be. But on to the next question. This is a fun one, I would say. Comes from Lars from Mars Hockey Cards on Twitter. And he wanted to know what cards are the best and worst to get when opening a box. And I know when he asked the question on Twitter, he kind of answered the question for himself, said, when I'm opening a box, these are, the cards that I like getting, and these are the cards I don't like getting. For me, I mean, I think, of course it depends on the product. If you're opening Series 1 or Series 2, you're kind of really focused on those young guns. You really want the big name young gun. But if you're just looking at general types of cards, I would say, of course, getting a really cool memorabilia card, it's hard to replicate that feeling of just pulling something, that's just like, wow, like that's super cool. Going back to my in the game used case or even the Vesna collection. I mean, some of that memorabilia is just truly historic and is not something that can easily be replicated. And in the same ways, autographs are certainly like that as well. Of course, I would say I and most other collectors prefer hard signs versus stickers. I don't think there's too much of a debate there. But yeah, and then as far as cards that are worst to get, I mean, obviously, I'm kind of just looking at hits. I'm not looking at just getting a base pack. Well, yeah, obviously that's going to be kind of disappointing. But in terms of hits, I mean, I would say anything kind of like manufactured versus game used, or even just like a rookie photo shoot jersey versus a game used jersey. I'd take the game used any day over the photo shoot stuff, and similarly, like, not that Letterman cards aren't cool. I mean, I have the full Jalmerson Upper Deck Black Letterman nameplate, like I alluded to earlier, but those are manufactured, and to an extent, like, it's kind of only so cool, if that makes sense. Not that I'd be like mad if I got something, because like it's still a hit, but it's just not quite as cool as that game use piece. And then of course, obviously, if you get a redemption card, that's kind of just disappointing. You'd rather have the actual card in your pack. So just kind of keep it short and sweet there compared to some of our other answers. Aaron, what would you say?
I mean, all those are good. I love Larry's answer there. Yeah, hard sign and worst manufactured patch or relic. Best cards to pull. I would say, like, it's kind of done to death in a lot of products now, but I still love it. One of ones, just any one of one is cool. Even like a printing plate is just so cool. I've never hit one. So I think this is probably, like, in the future, I would love to pull just a one of one of anybody. I think that would be awesome. I mean, say what you want about, the particular player or whatever, but I think there's always going to be a market if you're worried about that resale value. For a one of one, that this is movable somewhere, or just printing plate is just really, really cool. So that would be mine. Like, the best would be like a one of one, which is just awesome. Worst, I'd probably agree with you. I was trying to think of one, but I'd probably have to agree with manufactured patch. I actually really enjoy the manufactured patches in my collection. I think they're really cool, but at the end of the day, someone has to pull them. Unfortunately, I think if you're one of those guys that pulled them, I've seen some go for some very good money, especially when they first started to be created back in, I believe it was 2006. The first by the letter SB Games cards were created. Those were hot cards. Like, depending on the player you got, they were $100 per letter or something like that. So just crazy, crazy cards back in the day. But now, they're pretty done to death a little bit as well. So probably manufactured patch for me. Even though in my collection I do enjoy them, but pulling them, maybe not so much. And our next question, our last question before we get to the big one, which probably could be an episode all in itself, but this question just came right before we went live here. Chris Wall on Facebook has had a very good question. He said, "Are we entering a new wax era?" And he put there about how boxes now are becoming ridiculous in price. And I would say right now, in the short term, I would say, yeah, I think we are. I think the hockey hobby is kind of migrating into, a baseball, basketball type hobby where the wax there is just extraordinarily high, and people, for whatever reason, keep cracking open those boxes, hoping for those big name prospects, which mainly in baseball, they do that, but, that's why the prices are so high. And especially retail as well is just crazy over there. So yeah, I mean, I would say in the short term, yes. In the long term for hockey, honestly, who knows? It's really early to tell right now if hockey is going to have that consistency in terms of, interest in the hobby, and in terms of, box breaking in the hobby, and if people are going to want to gamble so much, and which makes those box prices go higher and higher. So yeah, I think, people have said that they would have thought it would stop by now, but obviously it hasn't. Box prices for pretty much every product across the board, whether it be old and new, are just seeing a rise. Pretty much in regards to new product, if you don't pre-order the stuff, it's going to be just insanely hard to track down. A week or two later, it just rises so fast, and pretty much people just hold boxes for ransom and just resell it. So which causes the increase in price. So I think right now, yes, just a new box breaking era where it's going to be, unfortunately, pricing a lot of people out of the hobby. Not out of the hobby, I shouldn't say that, but if their hobby is breaking boxes, it might price them out of a lot of the products they're used to breaking, especially, say cases of the cup or something like that. It might kind of limit them in that regard. But, at the end of the day, for the average collector, these boxes are still going to be broken. The cards are still going to be available. So I don't know if a new collector will feel it as much, but as far as, the breakers out there, and, the people who break and solely break as their only outlet in the hobby, I think for them, it's definitely going to be not really a junk wax era, but more of like a ball of or a box of gold type era, because, stuff is just going for insane amounts of money. So in the short term, yes. Long term, who really knows right now? It's hard to tell.
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty good answer. I would say that it is kind of a new, I don't know if I would say era, but it's kind of just how things are done nowadays, I think are a little bit different than how they used to be done. And a lot of that, I think, is due to the increased price of boxes. One big thing that's changing is that a lot of product now is opened through group breaks. Not that that hasn't been big in the past, but I think now, since products are so expensive, and this is a whole other conversation for another day, but just to clear it up, no, Upper Deck is not the one setting the prices that you guys are paying on release day. That's not how it works. So don't think that Upper Deck is like, hey, everybody sell the cup for $1,000. That's not how it works. But because the prices are that high, it's just more difficult for collectors as individuals to pay those prices in open boxes themselves. So what we're seeing a lot more at this point in time is group breaks is really the main way that product is being opened nowadays. And I've had to deal with that personally myself. Of late, Jacob Slavin has a ton of cards in the cup, and which I was really excited about. But it's been a little frustrating because we're what, 3 weeks, 4 weeks after release. I've seen maybe 4 or 5 enshrinements autos out of 99. I've seen 3 limited logos. I've seen, I think, 1 NHL collection. I've seen 1 emblems of endorsements, which I actually acquired and just got the other day. Sweet card. I've seen 2 of the Hurricanes sixes jersey cards, and that's it. And it's, like I said, it's been almost a month. And you would just think, that more of these cards would have surfaced by now. And, in reality, they probably have. It's just that they were pulled in group breaks. So people are still waiting to receive them in the mail so that then they can turn around and sell or trade them. And we've seen that kind of delay, so to speak, with the cup. I've seen it with Clear Cut, a lot of just products over the last year or so, and really more so in the last few months. Even it's kind of gone to a whole new level that a lot of products are primarily being opened through group breaking. And again, like I said, not that group breaking didn't exist prior to a year ago or anything. I mean, it's been around for 10 plus years at this point, but just the frequency and the quantity of product that's being opened in a group breaking format is much, much higher than it was even in recent memory. So I think in that way, it is kind of a new era of box breaking. And, it's nice in a way that people can spend a little bit of money and have the potential to get something absolutely massive. I mean, who wouldn't want to pay, whatever, 20, 50, 100, $200 and get something worth, $1,000 or something? That'd be awesome if you do. But, at the same time, I feel like it's kind of, I'm not a huge group breaking fan just because, I don't know, like to me, that's not really the hobby. Like that's kind of more just like you're so focused on value and like the money
Gambling, like
aspect.
straight up gambling.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is gambling, but
Yeah.
kind of the focus of group breaking is around money, not the cards themselves. So I'm not a huge proponent of group breaking. I actually have gotten on a little bit of a kick lately buying Jacob Slavin spots in the Cup Master case breaks, but and I haven't gotten anything, which is unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly fun. It gives you that rush of adrenaline, oh, like, am I going to get anything, whatever. But I don't know. To me, that just isn't really the hobby, and that's not the essence of the hobby. I think everyone loves opening packs and boxes themselves. And while watching it online is fun, and, while hoping that you get something is fun, I just don't really think that's really the point of the hobby. And not that I'm judging people that do it or anything. I mean, like I said, I've gotten in on group breaks a few times over the last few weeks myself, but I don't know. I think I have just kind of noticed that trend a lot in the last few months, and it's something that has kind of been concerning to me. I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of it personally, but yeah, I mean, like Aaron said, really, who knows? I mean, this market is just so out of control right now that no one knows what's going to happen, how long this may or may not last, if prices are going to continue to skyrocket, if it's going to settle down to some extent. No one really knows. I mean, we're kind of just on a roller coaster right now, and who knows where it's going to go and when it's going to stop. So yeah, certainly an interesting time to be in the hobby, that's for sure. And then turning our attention to, what I deemed as the juicy question. And this comes from Paul, his handle on Twitter is card underscore boarded. And he, sent us a few tweets about this topic, but essentially what his question has to do with the exclusive that Upper Deck has for licensed hockey cards. And, essentially his question is, are we in favor of seeing the Upper Deck exclusive end? And I just want to preface what I say by saying that Upper Deck does a ton of amazing things. They make a ton of amazing cards. I'm not saying that I don't like Upper Deck, or, that I want Upper Deck to never make cards again. Like, I want Upper Deck to always be around, because I think Upper Deck has just been such a huge driving force of this hobby over the last 30 plus years. Kind of where we're at now, I don't know. I mean, what would card collecting look like, and hockey card collecting look like, if Upper Deck never came to be in 1990?
Yeah, that's such a good point. Like, whether you have certain opinions on Upper Deck or not, which are totally valid, that's fine. You got to remember that not everything they do is bad. Although, collectors like to complain about stuff, and that's fine. But, just imagine the hobby without Upper Deck since 1990. Yeah, I mean, that's correct. I mean, just imagine all those iconic cards that would not have been created. I mean, yes, something else would have taken their place. Someone else would have grabbed the license. You could argue that, a certain company would do something better if they had the license, like this and that. But, at the end of the day, who knows? That company might have done the same stuff. There's nothing for sure about that, right? So, yeah, Upper Deck has done a lot of great things in the hobby. If you look at your top 10 cards in your collection, I can guarantee you an Upper Deck card is going to be there. But yeah, just again, yeah, it's a good preface that just to mention that Upper Deck has been around for a while and has really carried this hobby into the 21st century.
Yeah. So, kind of like I said earlier, I always want to see Upper Deck continue to exist. I always want them to make cards. I love Upper Deck cards. I think pretty much everybody loves Upper Deck cards to one extent or another. So that's kind of where I'm at on Upper Deck. Now, in terms of answering the actual question, would I be in favor of seeing the exclusive end? My answer to that is 110% yes, because in my opinion, the hobby needs competition in order to push the quality of cards in general and of products as high as it can possibly be. One reason that I really enjoy 2003-04 products is you had 4 licensed companies that were all going head to head, trying to put their best foot forward. And what that created was every single product was amazing. Now, of course, Upper Deck Victory wasn't this, super high-end product. I mean, it was still what you think of with Upper Deck Victory, a very low-end set, focused on the base set, focused on the inserts, focused on the parallels. There weren't autographs and memorabilia in it. But even just, if you look at, okay, this is a low-end product, it was very, very well done. And same across the board. I mean, you had In the Game that had a license, you had Topps, you had Pacific. So when you have all 4 of those companies trying to, outdo the other, the quality of those cards and the products as a whole is just so much better, because it has to be. If those companies wanted to be doing well and wanted to be making money, they had to make sure that they were putting out a good product so that people would buy it. And like I said, 0304, I think is just a perfect example of that, because there was so much competition in the hobby. And I'm not saying that we need to have 4 licensed manufacturers at all. I'm not saying that at all. But, even if you go back to the Panini days, a lot of people would say, Panini, take it or leave it, not as good as Upper Deck. Some people liked what they did better than Upper Deck. But just the fact that there was that competition really gave both companies a reason to be doing their best. And again, I'm not saying that Upper Deck isn't doing their best. I'm not opening that can of worms at all. But I think just having that competition really makes sure that no matter what, everyone is doing their best because they have to, not whether they want to or not, or they should or not, but because they have to. And, also having someone else in the game kind of diversifies what's available. With Upper Deck, yeah, you're getting new products that are coming out every year. Like Stature came out last year, and I absolutely loved Stature. Super, super nice product, and looking forward to it coming out again. But generally, most of the products are the same products every year. Obviously, there's going to be changes within them each year, but you can kind of expect a lot of the same things to be coming out every single year. Whereas, if you got another manufacturer in on it, you can look forward to a bunch of different stuff. I think kind of the big one that a lot of people are thinking about and hoping for is that Topps would get a license back again, once the exclusive is up. And, just if you look at Topps, they have so many iconic products, primarily, at this point that are baseball products that they could transfer over to hockey cards, whether that be a Gypsy Queen or an Allen and Ginter, something like that, that's such an iconic baseball product, but then transfer it over to hockey and do something really cool with that, I think would be awesome. One product I absolutely loved in 0304 was Topps C55, taking a spin on the original C55 cards. Absolutely loved that product. But they just had some really sweet cards. I mean, Topps Pristine was an awesome product that I would love to see done again, if they ever had the chance. Just a lot of cool stuff that I think they could do. And another important thing to think about with Topps specifically is they own the rights to so many vintage designs. It's crazy, because they own the OPG designs too. Even though Upper Deck has the OPG name, Topps is actually the one that owns the OPG and Topps vintage designs. That's why Upper Deck kind of got in that issue with the original 0809 OPG retro cards that were designed to mimic the 7980 OPG and Topps design. They got in trouble because even though Topps doesn't have a license at that point, they still own that design. So you think about however many decades. I mean, Topps had a license in the NHL for 50 years. I mean, they just have so much to choose from. I mean, you think about what a Topps Archives product could look like, in the 21st century. I mean, it'd be nuts. So I would certainly be a proponent of having another licensed manufacturer. I would love to see what Leaf could do with one. I think that'd be super cool. Just knowing their focus on memorabilia and unique memorabilia, I think it'd be really interesting to see what they could do, even though it would kind of require them to almost reinvent themselves because they're so focused on retired memorabilia at this point that it would kind of be, recreating themselves as a brand to have a license. I would still be intrigued to see what they could do. But yeah, I'm not sure that Panini is overly interested in coming back. I know they've had some products with their exclusive guys like Capo Caco and Vitaly Kravtsov that they've done recently. But yeah, I'm not sure that they, from what I've heard, are super interested in getting a license back. But yeah, Topps would definitely be the one that I'm keeping my eye on and hoping that they are able to get back, in the licensed manufacturing game in the long run.
Like I would 100% agree with you with everything you just said. I mean, it would be phenomenal just seeing more companies back in the game. I've always said this, that competition in any industry, but competition in this industry would be phenomenal for collectors. I mean, it would give us so much more choice. I think it would bring in a lot more people into this hobby and really strengthen the hobby as a whole. Some people might say that it might like almost like not water it down, but because they would have so much product available. And I think that's a really good thing. I mean, you might not like everything that this certain company puts out or whatever it is, but I mean, you can't argue that competition wouldn't be good for, the hobby and just as collectors, having that choice. I always love looking back in my collection and seeing, the different brands associated in this collection and just seeing the different designs every year and seeing what each company brought to the table, especially during those Panini years being so somewhat recent now. And I don't think they have any desire to get back into hockey from what I've heard. I mean, if something were to happen, would they step up and do it? I think they would. But, having that competition right now, I don't think would interest them. But Tops is a very interesting one. They had the Top Skate app for a number of years, and from what I hear, it is very popular. I'm not really too well versed in the hockey card world on there, but I heard it is very popular. And as far as Panini goes as well, they held the North American rights to the Panini stickers that have been well known in this hobby for decades. But and while they still do produce stickers, hockey stickers, they are kind of out of the game when it comes to the NHL. And Topps actually just in the last 2 years, I want to say, picked up the license to produce NHL stickers. So they have that in with the NHLPA, and also, you guys can't forget that exclusives and things like that. It does benefit the NHLPA to have one single license. It makes it easier for them, and so while that might be a unfortunate pill to swallow, it is probably one of the reasons that they have decided to go with one company alone. I heard during the last negotiations they did open it up to potentially having more companies involved, but just the logistics around that and the rules given to these companies were just not something they were interested in. So I think if there was something that could be done as far as making it more or having less barriers to entry, so to speak, on their license, on their product, which is the players, I think we could see some great things for the hobby. And going back to Tops, they have made a deal with the NHL to produce the NHL stickers, and they've done a really good job with that. They've been a big hit with collectors. I'm not sure what the sales have been and all that stuff, but if they can prove that, hey, our app is doing really well, we have the sticker license, and we've done a really good job with that, it's not a terribly far throw that they could actually compete and kind of edge their way in there into the actual, cardboard world. So who knows what we'll see unfold in the next few years. I'm not sure when the exclusive is up, but yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see if they open up the doors a little bit for another company to get involved. There is a lot of moving pieces on both sides, to be fair, and money doesn't grow on trees. But if that were to happen, I think that would be a really good thing. Even if it were just a two company thing like the Panini Upper Deck days, to go back to an Upper Deck Tops thing alone would be, I think, very beneficial. And I think collectors would be appeased with that. I mean, it's not the 4 or 5 company thing that we've seen in the early 2000s or even going back to the 90s, but I think it's a great starting place. And I think me included would definitely welcome back another brand, especially Tops, back into this hobby. I think it would be a sight for sore eyes. And no offense given to Upper Deck, I think they've done a fairly good job, of course. And where would our collections be? Would hockey cards really be, a thing if no one could pony up the amount of money to grab the license? I mean, who really knows? But yeah, no offense to Upper Deck in any way. Each company does things that are good, bad, and all that. But long story short, a new company would be fantastic, and to put an end to these exclusives.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I think at the end of the day, to us, it isn't necessarily who the company is. It's more we want the quality of cards and products to be as good as it can be. And naturally, that's just going to come when you have multiple manufacturers. That's
Yep.
just, how
It's
how
yep.
industries work.
In
That's
any
just,
industry, if there's a monopoly, things could slide and things like that. But if you have any kind of competition, even one or two, it definitely forces you to step your game up. And while it might not be perfect, and no company is, it definitely tighten things up a bit, or at the very least, it gives another opportunity for another company to really, go all out and show what they have. So, we'll see what happens again. Just like this crazy box market, we'll see what happens. But yeah, it would be really fun to see, honestly.
yeah. And I think, like we said, we named a few different companies that theoretically could do it. I doubt that we would ever see more than two in the near future, whether that be Tops or somebody else. I just don't see an era of 3+ licenses, happening really at any time in the near future. Even though that might be a lot of fun, I just don't think
Yeah,
that's really
I'm not sure if
practical.
the industry could really handle that. Just being hockey being so small compared to the other sports, I'm not sure if it's something collectors could really handle. I guess, although that would be cool. yeah, I mean, baby steps, but I mean, again, just any competition would be great. Any licensed competition, I should say, because they do have, competition right now. But as far as the licensed stuff,
Right, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, even though, Leaf is making stuff and Dr. Price is making stuff and Panini, like I said, has put out a few products over the last year or so that just focus on Kako and Kravtsov, I would say probably the majority of collectors at this point really only care about the licensed stuff, right or wrong. I mean, I certainly don't agree with that personally. I love, this stuff that some of the other manufacturers put out there, of course, but yeah, I mean, there are certainly people that just completely discount anything that isn't Upper Deck, and that's not right or wrong. It's just how a lot of people in the hobby are. So I think seeing another company coming into it, would certainly make the hobby probably a little bit more well-rounded and just a little bit more interesting in terms of the competition aspect of it. So yeah, I mean, like Aaron said earlier in the show, I mean, this is obviously something that we could have an entire episode on, and maybe we
it was a
will
great
again at
question.
some point. Yeah.
I
So
would love to cover it again in more detail as a standalone episode, but it was a great question. And I knew that we were going to kind of, have a long-winded answer about this. So it was a great question. And a lot of these questions were awesome.
yeah, it was really fun just hearing what you guys wanted to hear us talk about. Up to this point, we've really just been the ones that have determined what the content is. And obviously at the beginning I talked about a couple cards I got recently, but the majority of the episode was fueled by what you guys wanted to hear. So hopefully you guys really enjoyed this. I mean, I know we enjoyed seeing what your questions were and
Definitely did.
thinking about how we wanted to answer them, and really having to kind of think about what we're going to say more than just saying whatever we want. So
Yeah, there were some
um,
tough ones in there, but I'm glad you guys, asked those questions. Oh, and if you ever have any questions, find us on social media and ask. We're always around to answer questions about, collecting cards or just the hobby in general. So, whether it's a Q&A episode or not, just, feel free to reach out to us and we'll be more than happy to answer your questions.
yeah, absolutely. And this is something we'll definitely do again at some point in
Oh,
the
I would love to
future.
do that.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah, it was super fun, and I'm sure whenever we do it again, that there would certainly be clearly. I mean, there was already interest in it this time, so I'm sure in the future that you guys will have more questions for sure. So yeah, that was really fun, and kind of transitioning to a little bit of a bonus segment, so to speak. And we actually are recording this after the rest of the episode, so that's kind of why the episode has been delayed in getting released and put out there for you guys. But it was certainly worth waiting for this card to come in the mail. It just came in the mail on Thursday, and if you guys are seeing the image on the screen saying, the last topic we're talking about is, arguably the greatest card ever made, and you might be wondering, what the heck that might be. So, without further delay, this is, I mean, it's hard to really even put a card like this into words. It's something that I had been looking forward to for a long time, and was able to make it happen. And like I said, just got the card on Thursday. And even though sometimes I kind of hide my acquisitions from Aaron a little bit, Aaron has been, fully in the loop on this card from day one. And he's actually already seen the card at the time that we're recording, but hasn't seen it, live, so to speak. So I'll actually be showing it to him and getting his reaction that way. But yeah, I mean, it's just an unbelievable card, and truly historic in the sense of what's on it and just the uniqueness of that. So without further delay, I want to show you guys what very well might be my best card that I have ever owned and potentially will ever own. That being a historical relic complete pad from the Vesna collection of George Vesna.
That is just amazing. Like I've seen it earlier and I've seen a couple others, but that is just another stunning copy. I mean, look at that. 6 memorabilia pieces. Like that's just amazing. Like you can't get any better than that. Aside from a Vesna autograph, honestly, like I would put that right at the top because that's just unreal.
Yeah, it's an interesting argument. I mean, since I've received it, I've kind of thought about, like, okay, realistically, where does something like this truly rank in terms of the greatest hockey cards ever made? And, mind you, I'm not talking about the most valuable hockey card in the world. This is far from the most valuable card in the world. But if you're just looking at purely the quality of the card, what the card truly is, I have a hard time thinking of something that really tops this. I mean, I guess you could maybe argue the Vezina buckle cards from the Vezina collection. I mean, if you said those are the best cards ever made, okay, I don't know that I would argue that point, but I mean, outside of that, I just have a really hard time of thinking of anything that packs this much of a punch. And obviously, it's just a historic piece, having six of the possible eight materials that were part of Vesna's pads, and the other two, of course, being the loop and the buckles, like I mentioned. And of course, you guys probably know at this point that I was fortunate enough to pull one of the loop cards from one of my boxes. So at this point, I have all but a buckle in my collection. So not holding my breath on that, but maybe one day we'll see. But yeah, I mean, it's just an absolutely spectacular card, of course. And, like I said earlier, really hard to put into words. It's way nicer in person than it appears on a scan or a picture or a video or, any digital type of image of the card just doesn't really do it justice. Yeah, it's just spectacular. So very grateful to Dr. Price for giving me the opportunity to, be one of the fortunate few to own one of these cards. We've kind of talked a little bit about these cards in the past, and I think in obviously the main Vesna collection episode, I'm not sure if we've talked about them since then or not. But what ended up happening is there were a lot of people that had contacted Dr. Price asking about these cards, since they had been discussed publicly and had been already produced. And, then the art cards that, were originally supposed to be in the product that these complete pad cards were made to replace once the art cards got lost. Well, then when those art cards showed up, of course, that's just, what was used. They fulfilled kind of their own redemption, so to speak, like it always should have been. So then Dr. Price just had these complete pad cards sitting around, not really sure exactly what he was going to do with them. And, like I said, a lot of people reached out to him and asked about them. And enough people showed pretty serious interest that he ended up making 3 additional ones. So there were 7 in total. So once he had kind of gotten a pretty good idea of who was seriously interested, he finalized, some of the details of the card and the price and all that kind of stuff, and contacted everyone that had, reached out to him and, expressed serious interest in purchasing one of the cards. And from there, he just said, let me know if you want one. And if you do, I'll send you an invoice. And the first 7 people to pay for them, they get them. So I was fortunate enough to, see that email from him pretty shortly after he sent it. And of course, even though it was an extremely pricey card, I'm not sure if the price is really public information at this point, so I won't really say what it cost. But to me, for what this card is, it was just a no-brainer. Not that it's pocket change by any means. I'm having to sell some significant pieces in order to kind of pay it off at this point, but worth every single penny of it for sure. And when everyone was paying for their invoices, we were actually kind of just paying for the rights to one of the cards. We weren't buying a specific card. So how that ended up working out is Dr. Price held a draft lottery where he just kind of randomized a draft order and went one person at a time. So he would say, he just went down the list alphabetically and said, okay, this person, and then picked a ticket out of a hat, and it was like, okay, you're number 1, okay, you're number 4, you're number 2, you're number 6, and so on, to establish the draft order. And then of course he had shown each of us all 7 copies of the card, and then based on your draft order you would pick which card you wanted. And heading into the draft, this exact copy was the one that I had my eye on. I was really hoping that I would be able to get it. I just really liked the photo on it. Probably one of the more recognizable photos of him, I would say. And of course, being a full body image on this card just makes it so much better. I do have this photo of him on some of the cards that I have, but it's just kind of more of a headshot. Whereas, of course, like I said, this is obviously a full body image and just makes it that much better. So, like I said, that was really the one that I had my eye on. And a lot of guys kind of had their eye on two or three within the seven cards. So I was able to talk to most of the other guys. I knew most of the other guys, fortunately, and everyone was kind of willing to work with me and just tell me, like, oh, yeah, like I want these ones. So, like, yeah, I'm not going to take that one. And I had actually kind of worked out a little bit of a deal with a couple of the guys that, depending on who was picking where, if the card I wanted was still there, and if there were a few cards left that they were still interested in, that we would just switch spots. So, kind of funny enough, when Dr. Price did the draft order, I was the first one to have a pick assigned to me. Since we were doing it alphabetically, my last name is Andrews. I was the first one. Well, I actually got pick number 7 in the draft order, so I was dead last. So at that point, I was pretty nervous. But earlier in the day, like I said, I'd talked to one of the other guys, and he said, "Hey, I really don't care which one I get. So if there's one, that you have your eye on, which you clearly do, and if there's a way, to switch picks and make sure that you get that card, like, go for it. Like, I'll tell Dr. Price, and you can remind him, and we'll just switch picks." So fortunately enough, that guy actually had the second overall pick in the draft. So we just switched picks. He was willing to drop all the way to the literally the last pick and just get whatever was left, just so I could get this card, which is just extremely, extremely generous of him. He certainly did not have to do that. So very, very much grateful to him for doing that. And the person in front of me that was picking first overall knew, that I wanted this card, and they had their eye on a different one. So it just worked out perfectly, and I was able to get this exact copy. And that draft was on Tuesday night of this past week, and Dr. Price wasted absolutely no time at all getting these things out. And like I said, it was in my hands on Thursday. So just an amazing card. Obviously, I'm still going to be collecting for quite a while, but I don't know that I'll ever get anything nearly this nice ever again. So truly the finishing touches on my Vesna collection PC. I know earlier in the episode when I showed the art card, I kind of said, "Oh, that's the cherry on top," knowing that I was getting one of these complete pad cards later. Yeah, I mean, to have this truly does kind of cap it off at this point. I've got pretty much everything from the product that I could realistically ask for. So at this point, I'm not actively pursuing anything else from the product. I do still have the one sealed box that I'm saving for a later episode. So I guess I'll still have 2 more cards coming at some point for the product. But as far as actively looking for cards from the product, I'm done at this point. So it's certainly been a very, very, very fun couple of months with the product and the cards that are part of it. And being able to cap it off with this card is, just the perfect way to end that little chapter of my collecting. So just wanted to share that with you guys. Obviously, like I said, words just don't do this card any justice at all. But just had to share it with you guys. Not something you see every day, and we'll probably never see anything like this ever again. So very, very fortunate to be able to own a card like this for sure. Don't really know what else to say other than that. Aaron, I mean, like I said, a lot of times you kind of don't really know what's coming. I'll hide some of my pickups from you and wait to get your live reaction. But you knew about this one for a while. And now actually seeing it, not in person really, but actually getting to see it, on camera, how does it compare to what you had envisioned?
I mean, it's hard to really compare. I mean, when Dr. Price sent us those preview images a couple months ago, that was just a stunning preview, like of a potential card that at that point, I think was still on the fence, I believe, because he was still waiting for those art cards. And if those didn't turn up, he was going to create these 6-piece memorabilia cards. But it just so turned out that he was able to get those art cards in and still come around to create these cards anyway. So just the fact that, and especially with your Vesna collection, to get the art card that, at one point was in jeopardy of even, showing up at all. And then in the same breath, picking up this kind of a card that was born out of that is just amazing. So, I mean, it's just one of those pickups where you don't really see coming. And then when it's kind of in your collection, you're kind of like, wow, that's awesome. This is obviously like another level, of course, but it's just really something. Like it's like, I know we have like another episode titled "The Greatest Card Ever Made," but I think this might just top that, having those extra memorabilia pieces in there. It's just amazing.
Yeah, and it's good that you mentioned that. That title of that episode, the greatest card ever made, in reference to my triple memorabilia of Vesna that I had Dr. Price make for me. That was kind of more a clickbaity title, to be brutally honest. I didn't.
Still awesome.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think this card probably does trump that just because of just how many different types of memorabilia there are here, even though they are all, ultimately pad pieces as compared to a pad, a stick, and a skate, of course. But yeah, I mean, I think just the uniqueness factor of this is just something that you just don't see every day. So I think that, like I said, certainly puts it right up there for that potentially greatest card ever made, greatest hockey card ever made anyway. And it's interesting that you kind of brought up the art cards too. Obviously, you guys have seen the art card that I have, and now that I have this complete pad. But what's cool is the other three guys that got the art cards also got complete pad cards. So everyone has one of each, which is pretty cool. So, and that's good because all of those guys are very devoted collectors and take this product very seriously, obviously. So they're in good hands. They're not just in collections that people are only caring about money and they're going to sell one day and hope to make a lot of money. And no, like they're all in truly good homes, and will certainly be cherished by those collectors for many years to come. So just a neat little tidbit there that everyone that got an art card also has a complete pad as well. So pretty cool. But like I said, just a breathtaking card, really. I mean, it's crazy to just hold it in your hands and kind of just say like, wow, like this is significant. So yeah, I don't know what else there really is to say about the card, but just wanted to share that with you guys. Obviously had been something I had been looking forward to for a little less than a couple months at this point. Once the product came out, I was, constantly talking to Dr. Price, getting updates about what might happen with them and when that might be. And then, as the wheels kind of started moving and things started coming together, just got more and more exciting. And then the draft on Tuesday, getting the one that I wanted, and then, now having the card in hand a couple days later, it's really special. It really is. And like I said, I can't thank Dr. Price enough for, making cards like this and giving us the opportunity to own something like this. It truly is a piece of history that, you can hold and kind of just stare at and just be in awe of. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all there is to say. So yeah, that's the end of our little bonus segment right there, and back to the rest of the recording and getting on with kind of the outro, so to speak. So jumping back to that. Yeah, I think that's really pretty much going to wrap it up for the episode, unless you have anything else, Aaron.
No, I was just going to say, I was checking out our Apple page for our podcast. If you guys just want to go on there and give us a 5-star review on there, that would really help us out with the rankings and help us get our podcast into more people's ears, which sounds kind of weird, but it works for us. So be sure to check that out.
Yeah, it's important to do the 5 stars. I think we had one person that was confused with how the rating system worked and did 1 star.
Or they hated us, which is cool. If you want to hate us, that's fine.
I mean, it was probably that, let's be real. But no, but yeah, rating and reviewing is certainly helpful for us. We've seen a good uptick in numbers recently, and that's definitely encouraging. I think even just since the last episode, I think we've had another 5,000 or so listens and downloads and stuff. So certainly appreciate the support as always, and really glad that you guys are enjoying what we're doing. And certainly we enjoy doing it as well. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it. So yeah, I think that'll really wrap it up for episode 30. Please be sure to follow us on social media. We can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Center Ice Cardcast, and on Twitter at Center Ice CC. Please also be sure to subscribe to the show on your podcast platform of choice to make sure you never miss a future episode. Until next time on Center Ice Cardcast, keep collecting those hockey cards.